To get started on this project, locate the camping resource file zip folder inside of the student resource files that you downloaded. When you double click and extract this folder, it'll give you a folder named camping, and I'm going to rename it with my name on it. I'm going to type in WIP for work in progress. Anything that I do will be saved inside of this folder from here. And you can double click on it to see all the different JPEGs that we'll be working on. Next, let's go down to the Adobe Illustrator icon and launch Adobe Illustrator if you haven't done so already. Once it's launched, you can go up to File and create a new document. Now inside of here is all the information you need to set up a new document to work on. We're going to click on the Print dialog at the very top, and you can see Letter is automatically selected. As far as the details go, everything here is customizable. But for this project, all we're going to do is give our document the title of Icons. We're going to make sure our units of measure is set to points. We're going to set the orientation to be portrait, and we only need one artboard. Additionally, we can keep all of our bleed settings at 0 points for the top, bottom, left, and right. Everything else we're going to keep exactly the same, and then click Create at the very bottom. This will give you a new document setup that we can start to use. Now, if it gives you any tool tips that come up, you can either say remind me later, or I like to say OK to get rid of all of those. If any other learning tips come up, you can feel free to turn off that dialog box as well. If you can't see your entire screen, you can always go to View and down to Fit Artboard in Window. This will resize it so that it fills up your entire window screen. Also notice that you may not be able to see all of your icons at the very top and all of your different palettes on the side. If you click on the word Properties, you can see here it is over here, so I can scroll through some of these. But in order to see all of the other information at the top, go to Window, down to Workspace, and choose Essentials Classic. With Essentials Classic, this will give us all of our default options for the different tools that we use and also the default palettes along the side. Now that that's done, let's save our document. Go up to File, down to Save. It's going to ask you, do you want to save this in the cloud or to your computer? Always choose Save to Computer. This will give us our dialog box to save it as. Let's locate that Work in Progress folder that we saved earlier. In my case, it's on the desktop. Inside of here, and inside of this folder is where I want to save this. As default, I also like to add my name to whatever file that I'm working on. So in this case, I'll add Ben Ivy Icons, and I'm going to save it as an Adobe Illustrator format. When you click Save, this will ask for Illustrator options, and we're going to keep all of the default options that are on here. So don't worry about unchecking or checking anything. We'll say OK. And this will now give you an Illustrator file that's saved in the folder that we set up previously. The next thing the book's going to ask you to do is to open your preferences so that you can change the Smart Guides preferences. There's two different places you can go to. At any time, if you're on a Macintosh computer, you can go up to Illustrator and down to Preferences and choose what's needed here. Or you can click on the Preferences button at the very top and choose the preferences that you need from here. In either case, choose Smart Guides and make sure all of these are checked on except for construction guides at certain angles. So make sure Transform Tools and all the others look like this. You can then say OK. And to be able to see your Smart Guides, go up to View and make sure Smart Guides is checked on. This means it's activated so that we'll see them as we start to draw. Now let's draw some rounded rectangles. If you can never find the appropriate tool on the left-hand side in your toolbox, go up to Window, down to Toolbars, and make sure Advanced is checked on. From here, you should be able to go to your toolbox and locate the rectangle tool. If you click and hold on this tool, it'll pop open and show you a variety of different tools that do similar shapes or different kinds of shapes. we want to choose the Rounded Rectangle tool. With it selected, look at the bottom of your tool panel and click on the default fill and stroke icon at the very bottom corner of these two different swatches. This will turn your fill color white and your stroke or outline color a solid black. With the Rounded Rectangle tool selected, click once anywhere on your screen, and this will give you a pop-up dialog box that allows you to type in the exact height, width, and corner radius dimensions that you'll need. Notice that the unit of measure is still in points. However, if I was to type in 1.75 and then a quotation mark, this means inches. Watch what happens when I click away to the height menu. You can see it automatically converts inches into points. Let's do the same thing for the height as well. Again, 1.75, quotation mark, and then click away. Please make sure to put the quotation mark because if you do 1.75, it's going to do it in 1.75 points and not inches. As far as the corner radius goes, we'll keep it at 12 points total. And when we say OK, you can see this gives us a rounded rectangle shape wherever we clicked at. Now if you can't see your rounded rectangle or need to zoom in or out, you can always hold Command and the plus or the minus sign, and that will zoom in or zoom out. Also, if you need to move your rounded rectangle out of the way, locate the black arrow selection tool at the very top of your toolbox, and this will allow you to click and drag any object or thing that you've created wherever you want to put it. Next, let's create a rounded rectangle from a different kind of shape tool. Go back to your toolbox and click and hold on the rounded rectangle tool and choose just the regular rectangle tool. With this tool selected, you'll notice as I move my cursor around, you get these little magenta lines that tend to show up. Those are your smart guides. If you were to move your cursor to the very top edge of this rectangle, you can see that it will give you a guide that aligns perfectly to the top of this rounded rectangle. Let's make a rectangle that's exactly the same size as your rounded rectangle. So I'm going to click and drag from this top edge and drag down. Notice as I click and drag, as long as you're holding down your mouse, you get a width and a height that follows your cursor. And if you get a diagonal or a slashed magenta line, this gives you a perfect square. Do this until you reach the very bottom of your other rectangle. Notice that the width and the height are again 126 points. And because I have a diagonal line going through this one, it's perfectly square. When I let go of my mouse, this will lock in the change that we've made. To turn this into a rounded rectangle, let's carefully click on one of the little circles that's inside of this box. These are known as your Live Corners widget. When you click and drag, notice the little R that gives you a radius in points, and we want to make this one 12 points or as close as possible. To be honest, if you're off by a little bit, that's okay. So right about there is good enough for what we're going to do. When you let go, it locks in those rounded corners as well. Now with this shape still selected, let me show you how to type it in and make it a perfect rectangle that has perfect rounded rectangles, exactly what we want. To do this, we'll open up our Transform panel by going up to Window and down to Transform. And from the Transform panel, this allows you to type in exactly the measurements that you want it to be. So for instance, I can give it an X and Y coordinate. Here's our width and our height. And under the rectangle properties, here's where we can set the roundedness of the different corners. If you click on the little link in the middle, make sure they're all linked together, because whatever you type in 1, if I typed in exactly 12, when I click away, it'll automatically type that in for all of those as well. So the Transform panel is a handy one to have open if you want to be able to dial in exactly where and what to place your different objects that you create. For now, once I'm finished with this, I'm going to drag this Transform panel over and dock it inside of the dock. We'll use that one later. The final thing we want to do is to make a copy of an existing shape that we already have. To do this, choose your Selection tool, which is your black arrow. Click on one of the rounded rectangles and hold down your Option or Alt key. When you click on it and then drag to the right, you can see a copy is going to be made. Also, as you drag, you can see some of your smart guides are going to show up. So let's drag it till they're evenly spaced because I see the little smart guides in between, and also there's a straight line going horizontal all the way across there. Now I've got 3 identical rounded rectangles that are made in 3 different ways. Now let's change the color of our fill and stroke colors for each of these different rounded rectangles. With my selection tool, I'm going to select the very first rounded rectangle and let's hide our corner widgets. Go up to View and choose Hide Corner Widget, and notice that will turn off the little dots in the top corner. Next, let's open our Swatches panel by going up to Window and down to Swatches. And you can see it was already docked over on the right-hand side. Let's undock it by clicking on the name and dragging it off. And if you need to make it bigger, you can click on the bottom edge to see all of your swatches. Also, if you don't see the default setting here of how the swatches are presented, you can click on the palette options and choose Small Thumbnail View, so you can see just all the colors in nice small thumbnails. With the Swatches panel open and with the first rounded rectangle selected, let's click on the stroke color to bring it to the front. With it to the front, this allows us to change the color of that stroke. We're going to set it to be a light tan color, which will be this one right here. Then we can click on the fill color, and let's set this fill color to be black. Notice that when it does this, it changes the color of the object that you have selected. With it still selected, to make the stroke a little bit thicker, look up at the very top right-hand corner and find the Stroke panel and increase this number to be 3 points. The final thing we want to do is to quickly swap this fill and stroke color. In other words, I want the outline to be black and I want the inside to be that light tan. With it selected, look at the very bottom of your toolbox and click on the little double arrow that's at the top corner of your swatches. This will quickly swap out those 2 colors. By the way, a good keyboard shortcut to know is Shift-X will give you the same result of swapping those back and forth. I'm going to dock my Swatches panel back over to the side where I first found it by clicking it and dragging it to there. That's good. And then we'll close it out. Another way you can change the fill and stroke color is by selecting another object and go over to your Properties panel. Again, if you don't see your properties, go up to Window and select Properties. Inside of here, there's an Appearance panel that's got a fill and a stroke color from this. We can set our fill color by clicking on it and choosing the light brown, and we can set our stroke color to be black, and we'll keep it there, but we'll increase the size of it to 3 points with this. This Appearance panel gives you the same options to be able to change it up for whatever object you have selected. A final way to quickly and easily change the fill and stroke of one object to match the other objects is to first select the object. In this case, it will be our third rounded rectangle, and let's use our eyedropper tool. The eyedropper is towards the bottom of your tool panel. With it selected, you can click on any other object and it automatically picks up the fill and stroke of that object that you have and applies it to the object you selected. To deselect, you can simply hold down Command and click away and it will deselect that particular object. Finally, the book is going to have you draw one more rounded rectangle. This fourth one is going to have the same appearance as all the other ones, simply because we've already typed in the fill, the stroke, and the size of that particular rounded rectangle. So I'm going to choose my rounded rectangle tool. With it selected, I can use my Smart Guides, click and drag until I get a perfect square that's exactly the same size as the other one. Now if yours is going off the edge, that's okay. Later on we're going to move these into place. If you need to back out, remember Command and the minus sign will allow you to back out or zoom out. Plus you can hold down the space bar. This will give you your little hand. That will allow you to move everything so that you can see what area you're working on. Now if you haven't saved, now is a good time to go up to File and save what we're working on. Now let's place each of these rounded rectangles towards the top of our page. The book wants us to place them so that there's a 1/4 of an inch going on all sides and they're evenly spaced in between that area. The first thing we need to do is to turn on our rulers. So I'm going to go up to View and down to Rulers and Show Ruler. This will give you a ruler at the top and the left-hand side. Notice that everything is being measured in points. If you want to change it over to inches, simply right-click or control-click on any of the rulers and choose inches, and it will swap over your measurement now to inches. Now I'm going to choose my black arrow selection tool and click on this very first rounded rectangle. To move it exactly into place, I'm going to go to my Properties panel and I'm going to pay attention to the Transform panel. Let me drag it off so we can see it. Again, that Transform panel allows you to type in an exact placement of where you want the X and Y location to be. In our case, we want to be able to have our reference point be at this top right-hand corner to go down and over a 1/4 of an inch. So under the Transform panel, make sure you have this top left-hand corner selected, and in the X field you can type in 0.25. When you click to the Y, you can see it moves it over, and for the Y field we can type in 0.25 and you can see it moves it up and into position right there as well. So this comes in handy for knowing exactly where to place any item on your page. With that set to the very top, I can then click on these other ones and move them up until they're nice and aligned with each other. Again, I'm not going to worry too much with the spacing. If anything, I'm going to do it incorrectly and show you how we're going to space those off. For this last one, however, I can't just bring it up to here. I also want to make sure it's a 1/4 of an inch from this right-hand side. So again, in the Properties panel, we're going to change our Transform to be 0.25 for the Y value, which is already up here for now. But for the X value, I'm going to swap it over to this upper right-hand side, and I'm going to set that to be 8.25 from the right. Now that gives me the proper alignment for this one and for the first one and all the others that are in between. Now with this done, there's also a quicker way that we can have everything easily aligned. And I'm actually going to move these out of the way just to show you how powerful this is. If I wanted all of these to be aligned along this top edge, I'm going to use my black arrow selection tool to click and drag over all of these objects. So all 4 of the rounded rectangles need to be selected. Next, inside my Properties panel, locate the Align tab at the very bottom. We want to be able to align these to each other. First, with it opened up, make sure you have Align to Selection selected. With Align to Selection, we can have them all aligned at their top edge. This is going to move everything up and into place. In order to have them evenly distributed with each other, let's return down to our Align tab and click on the 3 dots to give you some more options. And under Distribute Objects, choose the second to last to horizontally distribute them from their centers. With it selected, now you can see all 4 of these are aligned with each other and evenly spaced. The last thing that we need to do is to quickly make a copy of all 4 of these so that we have 2 rows. With your black arrow selection tool selected, hold down the Option key and click and drag down. And as you drag down, you can see on your cursor it has a little X and Y distance that it's moving. We want to be able to move these directly down about 2 inches. Again, if yours is off by just a little bit, that's okay. Once it says a distance of 2 inches down, now we're done, and we can go up to File and Save and move on to the next section. I'm going to put my Properties panel back over to the side here. Let's go up to File and down to Place, and let's locate each of those little JPEGs that were downloaded from our file resources. The first one we want to choose is the Picnic JPEG. Before you say Place, make sure you can see the extra options down at the bottom. And if you don't, you can click on the word Options, and this will open this up. Make sure the word template is checked on because we want to bring this in as a template file. So with it checked on and Picnic selected, we can say place. And notice that it will place the image, but it's going to be behind everything. That's okay for now. Later on, we're going to change this up. Let's do the same thing for 3 more of the different icons. We'll go up to File and Place. Again, we're going to choose the 3 different ones, which will be the campfire, the tents, and also the hiking one. Let's do hiking first. Hiking, make sure to turn on Template and Place. And we'll go up to File and Place. Let's do the campfire. Choose Template. And then finally, File and Place. And choose the tents. Make sure Template is checked on and say Place as well. Now if you've accidentally placed any one of these without turning on the template, that's okay. Simply go up to Edit and Undo, and that will take away the last one that was placed. You can then go back up to File and Place and make sure to do it correctly as you move forward. Now to make sure everything is visible and was done correctly, we need to open up the all-important Layers panel. If you don't see your Layers panel over to the side, you can go up to Window and choose Layers. And I'm going to drag mine off so we can see it. We'll close out the others. Notice that as you placed each of the different images, they came in as template layers that are already locked down, and they have their own individual icons, which are squares. All of the rounded rectangles you've been creating are in layer 1, and it has an eyeball as its icon. If yours doesn't look like this, then that simply means that you've imported your template layers incorrectly. Back up and redo it until it looks like this. Now in order to see each of our templates, we want layer 1 to be below all of our templates. So I'm going to click on the word layer 1 and drag it until the blue line is at the very bottom of this panel. Notice now it took everything and put it below each of the templates, and now we can start to see each one of these in stacking order. The final thing we need to do is to align each of these templates so that they're in the center of each of the top rounded rectangles that we have. Let's take this one at a time. I'm going to go to my Layers panel, and I'm going to click on the little rectangle from the top to the third bottom and turn off those top 3 ones. And we're going to work with the Picnic template first. In order to select this template, because it's locked, we need to click on the lock and unlock it. This will allow you to use your black arrow selection tool and select the Picnic template that we placed in there. Next, hold down the Shift key and click on the first rounded rectangle. When you shift and click with your selection tool, both the rounded rectangle and the template are now selected, and you get a bounding box around both of those. What we want to do is we want to align this template to this top left rounded rectangle. So going up to the very top of your toolbox options, notice that you've got your alignment panel. We're going to click on the alignment options, and we're going to align it to a key object. With that done, you can see that it's highlighted the template. We want to click on the rounded rectangle and let that be our key object. Now with this highlighted, you can choose the horizontal alignment to center. We'll move it over, and then horizontal or vertical alignment to center, which will move it up and into place. Let's do that again with another icon. Again, let's go over to our Layers panel. Since we're done with this one, we'll lock it down. We'll turn off the visibility of it. Let's turn on visibility of our hiking icon. We'll also unlock it, so we can select it, hold down the Shift key and also select the next rounded rectangle. Then go up to the top of your Options panel, click on the Alignment Options and choose Align to Key Object, and then click on the rounded rectangle to make it your key object. Then it's a simple matter of clicking to horizontal and vertical alignment to get it into place. With that one done, go back to your Layers panel. We can lock down that layer, and then we can turn off the visibility. Let's turn on the visibility for the template for the fire. Again, we'll need to unlock it. Select your template, hold down Shift, and also select your rounded rectangle. Up at the top, make sure the key object is selected, and we want to click on the rounded rectangle to do it. Uh-oh, I just realized I've got the wrong one selected. Let's do this. Now we want the third one. There we go. With the third rounded rectangle, we can align it to the center of that. With that done, let's lock down those two. And then finally, let's unlock the template layer for the tent. Hold down Shift and select the final rounded rectangle. Set it to be a key object. And then align it. Uh-oh, you can see if I try to do this with the wrong object selected, it's not going to work. Let's undo that. Align the key object, select your rounded rectangle, and now we'll move it over and up. Again, at any time, if you make a mistake or it's not aligning correctly, simply go up to Edit and Undo and back up until it gets to a point where you can see it. Finally, let's lock down this template layer, and we can turn on visibility for all of our other templates. The last thing the book is going to have you do is to manage some of your layers by going to the Layers panel, and let's rename Layer 1. So I'm going to double click on the name Layer 1, and we'll call this our background layer. Since I don't want to move my background or have any edits or changes to it, I'm going to click on the open area and lock it down next to its visibility. Now you can see there's nothing I can do to make any changes. We want to create a new layer that we're going to draw on all of our icons. So to do this, I'm going to make a new icon by clicking, or a new layer by clicking the Create New Layer icon. We can double click it and call this our Icon Art layer. And we want this layer to be at the very top. So click on it and drag up until the topmost bar is selected. And that places it at the very top as well. Once you're done, let's go up to File and do Save, and let's move on to the next section.